I see a red light down there at the very bottom.
I turned it on a while ago.
Oh, we've been recording.
You might even be able to grab some.
Wow, well, that's fantastic. All right, well,
you're going to do a lot of editing.
That is part of the experience here.
It is part of it.
All right. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to Real Estate Makes Us Drink. This is a Success Happy Hour. Brian Quinlan with Daniels Real Estate.
Brad Nickham with Nest Mortgage Group.
And Success Happy Hour is not complete with just the two of us. So we have a guest today. Ma'am, I know you. Who are you? What do you do?
Ma'am? Really?
That's right, ma'am. We're that old.
I would have done it differently. I would have said doctor.
That's fine.
I'm Juliette Schmalz. I am the owner of Fortune Spool.
Oh, see, we've had a few celebrities on the show. Stephanie Quinlan, celebrity, simply because we talk about her often.
Wow.
Fred, celebrity because he is our largest follower, comments all the time. We've had him on the show, friends with Brett. We've had Fortune's Fool on our show multiple times.
Times.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. And we wouldn't if it sucked. So there's that. But a previous guest who was our first Success Happy Hour guest, Chris Weatherford. Hi, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
He raves about Fortune's Fool whiskey.
Hi, Chris.
So exactly. So as I was talking to Chris a couple weeks ago, I'm like, we need to have Dr. J on the show. And I say Dr. J. So let's start there. Dr. Julie Schmalz. You don't introduce yourself as Dr. Julie anymore, so that's, I don't know.
I don't usually, unless I'm in the operating room.
Yeah. And I've always known you as Julie. So you previously were an anesthesiologist. Can you give us a little background on that?
Yes. I practiced anesthesia on the south side of Indianapolis for about 16 years. Hated almost every minute of it.
Oh, fantastic.
Just was looking for something else that was going to click with me a little better. And it took 14 years to get out. But it eventually, and I tried several things and nothing really got me there. And a lot of it was starting a business.
There was a part post-anesthesiology, pre-Fortune's Fool, where you helped me with some acupuncture.
Oh.
I had rolled my ankle playing basketball, and you came over and pinned the hell out of me, which I had never had before. That was interesting.
And if I recall,
I pictured you playing basketball.
Dude. Oh,
if I recall, we had a great outcome with that.
It worked out well, yes. And so you were into, and may still be a follower of like holistic medicine, right?
Yep, did an integrative medicine fellowship.
It's kind of what got you out of anesthesiology, perhaps.
Oh, I sure tried. It was just difficult because I'm not primary care, so it was hard to get into a job, so I'd have had to create one. And that's where I kept hitting a roadblock was I'm not a business person and I don't feel super savvy in that world. But when I met my now husband in 2017, he just happens to have an MBA, has worked in finance. He's a serial entrepreneur. So here we are.
Suddenly you're a businessman's wife, and now you are a businesswoman.
I just wanted to make sure you knew that a serial entrepreneur is not someone that owns like Frankenberry, Booberry, and
Dude,
Count Chocula.
You Count Chocula. That's the key right there.
But that's not a serial entrepreneur.
Well, I mean, I think Mr. Kellogg would disagree.
Mr. Kellogg's.
I don't think he branched out. I mean, I think he just stayed with the Kellogg.
That man, serial entrepreneur. It's a spelling difference. You want to spell it for me?
Oh, no.
Exactly.
I don't have any of those letters.
All right. Well, as I'm sitting here listening to Julie talk, and this wonderful Fortune's Fool is sitting in front of me, we need to cheers this, first of all.
No doubt.
Julie, can you tell us what it is that we're drinking here in batch number 1? 2 bottles. We're going to have 2 different samplings here today.
My very first release, almost exactly to the day a year ago, is the
happy
Prelude.
Anniversary.
Thanks. I don't remember what day it was, but our release party was the first.
Is that when we were at that unnamed bar?
Yes.
We don't say the name of said bar because my man here is a member.
Oh, are you?
Yes.
Nice.
And but that release party was early October last year. Yeah.
It was.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was a good time.
Yeah. So this is the Prelude. It's a straight rye whiskey. It's a 10-barrel dump. Barrel strength, 109.6 proof. All of my whiskey is cradled in the world's finest barrels.
Now, that is one thing that I feel is unique about your product. And I could be wrong, but
Yes.
like you go out and choose the wood for the barrels or choose the barrels or something to that extent. Is that accurate?
Well, what we did was, in realizing how important the barrel is for the final product, and in realizing that we are never going to be cranking out whiskey 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that we could actually afford to invest in more expensive, higher end barrels that will give us a better product early on and later. So we did research, asked a lot of questions about people like, hey, if you could just go anywhere and use their barrels, whose barrels would you use? And we kept getting sent back to this one
Oh,
cooperage that happens to be in Napa, California, Sega Moreau. They're fantastic. I could talk about the barrels like for a very long period of time. Maybe, I don't know if you want me to go down a
hey,
rabbit
you
hole
know
or
what?
not.
Whatever. I edit, so I can
Okay.
do whatever. So go for it.
So that's what we decided. We had to find, there has to be a story and there has to be a differentiator in a crowded field like whiskey. So
Yeah.
for us, the story, there's a few storylines with our brand, and then, our North Star is quality, definitely not quantity. We're making 300 barrels a year, which it looks very cool, and there's a picture of me in front of all my barrels, but
Sure.
the big boys, they spit that out since we've been talking, so, it's not very much. Sega Moreau started in Cognac, France, and they still have a cooperage over there, and they historically did cognac in wine barrels. And then smartly they put in a cooperage in Napa, California. There's a
Brilliant.
little bit of business over there too. And about 18 years ago they started making whiskey barrels on top of the other ones. And they just have, their eye for quality is different from at the tree. They told me, I was at their mill in Arkansas in December, and Independence Stave also has a mill in that same area. And he said, when we're on the highway and we see a truck with a bunch of logs in the back, we know which mill it's going to just by looking at the trees.
Oh, wow.
So older trees, fewer knots, fewer faults in the actual wood. They sample every single log that comes into their mill. They take 3 drill holes and they pulverize it and liquefy it in some way, send it to a lab and test it.
Oh, my.
And every log gets determined to be high or low aroma. And that's just chemical content. And then they decide this tree, how are you going to spend your best life? What are you going to be cradling? And they're very specific about the best use for each individual tree. So then the wood goes through the mill. They cut it into staves, put it on a pallets. The wood that is going to go for our top, we buy their top of the line barrel, goes to Missouri and sits in nature for 24 months. So snow, rain, wind, moss, bugs, everything. And that all plays a role in preparing that piece of wood
Am I
to
drinking
be.
bugs?
The bugs don't stay. They would love it, I'm sure. I mean, if you're going to go, why don't you go in alcohol?
Does the cooperage do the charring on the barrel? Or does the distillery do that?
The cooperage.
And-
So, go
No,
ahead.
go ahead.
Once they get the wood to the cooperage for the barrel, the science is gone, and now it's like old school, and it's only a wood oak fire to bend the staves to make the barrel shape. Only an oak fire for toasting and charring. And so there's no steam and gas, which it's just giving you more like fire contact, which is going to help with flavor and preparing the wood more naturally for interacting with the liquid. And then they don't kiln dry. Most, I would say, industry standard is probably maybe a 3-month drying period, and then you rapid kiln dry it to get it dry enough to be a stave. Maker's Mark, who I'm a fan of, boasts a 9-month drying period. Ours is 24 months.
Wow.
So, and there's other people that do that, but nobody does it. There might be a couple of people out west that are really small that use someone like Segwin Moreau exclusively like us, but it's extremely rare, and certainly none of the big labels. They can't afford it. There's
Sure.
no wood that sits out. There's not that
It cuts their
volume.
margin.
Yeah.
So do you have a level of char that you get to choose, or are they all charred the same way?
I pick whatever I want. I can toast and char to order. I could order each barrel differently if
Maybe
I
a
wanted
great
to.
blend, and then pick a great single barrel with a different char. So when I know aging is a longer time than, I talk about tequila on the show all the time, so much longer time than tequila. But after 4 times, right, that's pretty much when the barrel loses its gift back to the alcohol. So do you use the barrels over and over again up to a certain amount of time, or are you only using your barrels one time?
We're only using the barrels one time for whiskey. And we were like, man, these barrels are really nice.
Right.
Huh. What can we do with really great used whiskey barrels?
I know what you do with them. You're going to be amazed at how different that spirit reacts to a whiskey barrel than what the whiskey does. And the change is much more rapid.
I'm looking forward to it. So
All right. We're going to come back to
Okay,
that.
that's
All
fine.
right, because that will be, a later conversation. How the hell do you get from, I want to be a doctor someday, anesthesiologist of all doctors, because you go to school longer than anybody else, then you transition out of that, and now you're making whiskey. How did you get here?
Before she says, I know.
Oh,
She was knocking people out at parties in college. Then she knocked people out as a anesthesiologist.
so I
and
want
now
to
she's
point out
back
we
to
have a
knocking
studio
people out.
audience. Stephanie is sitting over there shaking her head no
I was just-
viciously.
I was just guessing.
What,
Not
that I wasn't knocking people out?
at parties.
No, that wasn't really my.
She was the party girl
MO.
with the biggest bong.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
gonna go to sleep.
no.
I was the book nerd.
Book nerd. There you go. We're getting
Okay.
a definitive
That
yes
ruined
over
my
there.
entire theory.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, little backstory here. So I met my wife in college, and she and Dr. Julie have been friends since college. If we met at IU, no offense, I don't recall that. So
Very brief.
Yeah, exactly.
I know I met you down there, but
Oh,
He was
briefly.
probably in the
while
basement of
drinking.
Sigma Nu.
It was definitely at parties.
Okay, definitely at parties. Yeah,
in the
that makes
basement
sense.
of Sigma Nu doing shots somewhere.
No.
I was probably
no
the DD.
fraternities for me. Who's this chick? It doesn't matter. Just get in the car. Yeah. So I mean, Dr. Julie and I do go back quite a bit. So, all right. Back to my question. How do you get from medical world to this?
I did medicine, honestly. Like, I really, when I was a kid, I'm like, I just want to help people when I grow up, which, is a great
You're
thing.
still helping people.
Yeah,
Oh, you're helping.
cheers.
You're helping
Right,
more
Chris?
people now than you know.
And people would always say, oh, you could go, I had great grades growing up. And so people would be like, oh, you could be a doctor. And I'm like, okay. Okay. I mean, there's no doctor in our family. I was probably the least informed on the first day of medical school in my class.
All right.
Like,
No
well,
kidding.
I'm here. And
When
it's
do I
like,
fix
oh,
someone?
crap. Literally, I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon or do sports medicine or something in that realm. I was thinking like knee scopes. I wasn't really thinking about like hammering on, total joints.
Side note: could you fix my knee?
I got acupuncture needles.
All right. Sounds good. Continue.
Literally, the very first week of med school, I get to follow an orthopedic surgeon. And the end of that day, I went home and was like, like, I am not in that club. That
I
is
don't like
not.
drills and hammers and saws.
I just knew I didn't fit the profile. Like, I still liked it, but I just didn't think that was going to go well for me if
Okay.
I did that. So then it was just a search for what I wanted to do.
I've had that experience.
Still searching.
Still searching, yeah. And then once I did anesthesia, was out in practice, it's just, I think there were some things against my personality, like some things that don't quite mesh that I was just making work. And I literally just twisted myself into a pretzel trying to make this work. Because it's so much easier just to stay, right?
Yeah. Oh,
30
I know
years
exactly
of
what you're saying. Yes.
It's easier to stay to a point until it's so painful to stay that it's actually easier to leave.
Yes.
And I did try to leave a couple times, and it was just, I ended up having to go back. And so let's get to the fun part. The fun part is I've always liked whiskey. Like, we've always liked whiskey.
Yeah.
From,
Okay.
college.
So we're 51, and back when y'all turned 40, there was a Mediterranean cruise,
Yes.
and not long after that was a trip down to the Bourbon Trail. You were part of that, I believe.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Was that when we were 40? Or
It was
it
like
just a random
41 or
one?
42. It was close to that.
Okay.
And so obviously you've had an affinity for bourbon
Yeah.
for a while.
Yeah. And you guys drink Beam, right? Yeah. So
We should almost have
my girlfriends
disgusting
drink Beam.
My wife drank Southern Comfort.
Oh, sweet. So does my dad.
I just remember Maker's Mark. That's
Yeah.
all I remember. I never drank Beam like that. I don't know where it came from with the other three.
Tammy.
Was it Tammy?
Yes, for sure.
Okay. So,
Hi, Tammy.
so I've always liked whiskey, and then actually one of the things I was thinking about when I was figuring what can I do after anesthesia, I was kind of into wine at the time, and I just really liked the art and science. You make all these decisions. There's this huge decision tree, boom, 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 and somehow you get something really delicious on the other side. And same happens with whiskey, except for you're glutton for punishment even more because you gotta wait longer.
24 months?
Longer.
Yeah, right.
So, and I don't know, I just became fascinated with the barrels and realizing how important the barrels were. And so I just wanted to learn as much as I could about that. So then when my husband and I sat down, like, what would you want to do that would just you'd be passionate about? I'm like, well, I would really love to learn how to make whiskey. Here we are.
That's so awesome.
I think that's super cool. And credit to your husband for just being on board. Now, as previously described, serial entrepreneur, he's probably open to a lot of ideas that others may be like, nah, do you really want to risk that? Credit to him and him pushing you to doing this. I think that's great.
We talk about he can tolerate a level of risk that I do not, and especially on the business side, because it is terrifying at times. I'm just like, oh, good Lord. I'm like, does it ever, smooth out? And he's like, not really. It's kind of horrible all the time.
As an entrepreneur and someone that's owned many businesses, you just go, yeah, let's give it a shot. And then you're like, that happened.
Yeah. At some
Well,
point, it's
let's
just
try
like,
this.
well,
It
let's
doesn't
see what
matter.
happens. And here you are with 2 fantastic bottles of whiskey here.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what
Just
you
the
have
beginning.
next.
Yeah.
Do you have, I seen on your website that there's 3 bottles that you have, or 2 bottles that you have right now, but then there were 2 bottles that didn't have anything on them yet. They were just like ghost bottles.
Ghost bottles. And were those a different shape?
Oh, I'm not sure you got that.
I don't know.
The answer
Were they
is
a little
probably
bit different
yes.
shape? I did. I seen they were like ghosted. I was making our slideshow, and I was like, oh, there's 4. Like there's only 2 here, but there's 4. So I guess I didn't notice the shape. Now, are those currently resting somewhere?
Well, we have obviously we have a rye mash bill, but we also have bourbon mash bill, and we have a wheat and bourbon mash bill, and we have a custom bottle, which is why
Okay, so
I was
that
asking about the
bottle
shape.
different.
Yes,
Fantastic.
all coming down the pike.
All right, so I know the bottle shape has been, I don't know, creatively chosen by you, if I'm not mistaken. Number of sides to the bottle, or there's a
Yes.
story there.
There is a story there.
Okay, and it all is a reference to your name, if I'm not mistaken.
It's all reference to Romeo and Juliet, because my name
What?
is Juliet. Shakespeare Theater. Yes.
Okay.
So it's 7-sided. 7 is for luck. Around each side on the bottom, there's a word that starts with F. I joke that my favorite one is not there. But they're all in reference to, they're like fortune, folly, farce, fantasy, fiction. I always forget a couple. There's 7.
F, forgot.
Forgot.
I'm such a child. Fart is the one I thought of.
When she said farce, yeah, I know that popped into my head. Anyways, sorry. Welcome to the show.
That was not my favorite
We're
word.
10-year-olds.
And then it looks like curtains and our releases. These are called the prelude and the overture as a introductory term for our custom bottle. And the custom bottle, the releases will be in acts and scenes, which is, theater related. Of course, at the time when we decided, we did not realize that Midsummer Night's Dram was acts and scenes, but hey.
Well,
So it's not 100% unique, but it's very fitting.
I
And
didn't know that, so you're good.
and Fortune's Fool, the name, is from Romeo and Juliet.
It is. It's from a line
I
in
mean,
the play.
I'm not a Romeo and Juliet fan. I think many of us studied that in high school and did not give a damn about it. But that is a line in there? Or
Yes,
a part of the line?
Romeo. It's kind of in a dark. I mean, it's not like the happiest of plays.
Well, Brad was asleep during that particular portion of English class, so
I just
he
know
was in
they-
the dark anyway.
I know they killed themselves.
There you go.
Romeo kills Mercutio and exclaims, "Oh, I am Fortune's fool."
Boom, there you go.
And yeah, I mean, you can read into it in a lot of ways. It's definitely from the play. I think it sounds not only like a great whiskey name, it sounds like a great racehorse name, does it not?
Yes. Not as good as my racehorse name, though.
What is it?
Hoof-hearted. Just because I want to hear
Seriously?
this.
Okay.
Who farted by a nose? And then I had another one that I can't think of. It was a much naughtier.
I think it was
horse name.
dirty.
Okay, this is flashback to The Simpsons.
Oh, well.
Okay.
Welcome to
Prank
the show.
calls.
Here's the thing, though.
Yeah.
If we were on The Simpsons, this is the future. Because The Simpsons always tell the future.
That's
If you
correct.
watch
This
it,
was
you know
predicted
it's
by
gonna
The Simpsons
Yep.
at some point years ago.
Yep. I have a friend in horse racing. We actually had a couple horses. We got the pictures up there.
Oh, yeah.
And they said they would not let hoof-hearted become a name. There's actually a process to get the name in there, and then they turn them down. It's something like that.
But I bet Fortune's Fool could make it in there.
Yeah, maybe
That'd be
someday.
a great. Oh, that'd
I
be a
actually think
great
that
one.
is
That sounds like a Derby winner.
for
Heck
real.
yeah.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Maybe you should throw all your money behind that and try that next. Don't do it.
Not gonna do it. Here's $10.
I can think of a worse way to try to make money. It's with racehorses.
I believe it.
There's
Yeah.
that.
Pretty neat.
Ready for a break?
I'm ready for more. My glass is empty.
All right. Well, we're gonna pause here and fill up with some overture and talk about that and the future of Fortune's Fool. So stay tuned.